Hi fam, and welcome to day 4 of my end of the year series where I am wrapping up the year 2020 and welcoming the year 2021 with some hopefully amaze bookish content. In this video I'm going to be talking a lot about 2021 because I will be talking about some of my most anticipated reads of 2021, and this is going to be video 1 of 4 because I did a lot of research, and essentially my thought was that why should I whittle the books down? Like, why should I whittle my list down when there are so many great books out there that I want to talk to you about and like bring to your attention if, like, if it wasn't quite like on your radar. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this video. I have 17 books that I want to talk to you about. In this video, I will be talking about the international releases. And I will be talking about fiction and contemporary, historical fiction and non-fiction. In the next international one, I will be talking about young adult, science fiction and fantasy, romance, thriller, mysteries as well. So look out for that. And then there will be 2 other videos for Indian fiction and non-fiction and translated fiction and non-fiction. So that is coming up in the next few videos. If I have already, like, the days have passed, and I will link them down below, and there'll be an entire playlist, so do check that out, because I really have, I think, made a wonderful list. But let's just go in and talk about the books, shall we? Number 1, I'm going to be talking about like literary fiction or contemporary fiction, and the first one that I want to talk to you about is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite writers. She has written some of my favorite books, including Daisy Jones and the Six, which I absolutely loved, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I just really like the way that she writes. I think that she has a wonderful way of writing, and her characters are always so interesting. This one is set in Malibu, I think in the 1980s. Yes, the 1980s, and it follows 4 siblings who throw an epic party, and I think they're like very rich kids or something like that, but then over the course of 24 hours something happens, and then their lives are changed forever. And I think we kind of see it from like all the children's perspectives, so I really look forward to that. The second book, now there is no, I mean, it just says that it's out in 2021, but this is a book that I've been looking forward to for years, and if it doesn't come out, I'm going to be very unhappy, and that is Hamlet by Gillian Flynn. So Gillian Flynn is the one who wrote like Gone Girl and like Dark Places, and just like, the author who basically writes a lot of dark shit. And Hamlet is the Shakespearean play, and this is essentially Hogarth is a publisher which has like this very cool concept of taking Shakespearean plays and giving them to famous writers to kind of make them their own in terms of like contemporarizing them. And Gillian Flynn has Hamlet, and I don't think they could have chosen like a better author to do this with. For Hamlet, in general, I studied English literature, and I just think that Gillian Flynn will do such a great job. So I really hope that Hogarth is actually doing this, and Gillian Flynn has written this book, and it comes out in 2021. And this is the only book that like I'm not sure if it comes out in 2021 or not, but I am honestly like manifesting this shit. Like, so please manifest with me. It's essentially what I'm trying to say. The third book is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. Colson Whitehead is now a 2-time Pulitzer winner. That is crazy. He won it in 2017 for Underground Railroad, which I read and I really liked, and then Nickel Boys for 2020. I've not read Nickel Boys yet, but I just really like the way that Colson Whitehead writes and the way that his brain functions. I've heard him speak at like a literary festival as well, and I just really like the way he thinks. So I think that he plots out, and his books are just really interesting to kind of read, and this one is set in Harlem, and I think in like the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, and it is said to be a family saga that is also a crime novel. So I just think that that sounds really interesting, and it is apparently an ode to Harlem in general. So I just think that that sounds really cool, and yeah. The fourth book is Filthy Animals by Brandon Taylor. Brandon Taylor is a debut author. I mean, no, he's not. He's a debut author of 2020. His book Real Life was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and though I haven't read it, some people who I trust really loved his way of writing, and I've actually loved what they had to say about it. So this book is basically a short story collection that follows interweaving stories, and I absolutely love the concept of like short stories but interweaving stories, where you see multiple characters go in and out of other stories, if you get what I mean. And this is set in the American Midwest. So yeah. The fifth book is Still Life by Sarah Winman. I absolutely love Sarah Winman again. Tin Man, which is right here, is one of my favorite books of all time. I absolutely love um, the book, and I loved her prose. And this book is a World War II book set in a Tuscan villa, in a wine cellar where two people meet. One is a British soldier and one is a like a 60-year-old or something like that. I'm not too sure, but essentially their lives unfold over, I mean, they tell each other about their lives and over like one evening, and I think that it sounds really good. I just want to read it for Sarah Winman because I just really like her as an author. I also do want to say over here that these books are not arranged in a particular way at all. I'm gonna put dates for each of them, whichever I do know, in the description or like here in the video somewhere. But like they're just random, so there's like, honestly, it's very arbitrary how I have arranged them. It's just meh. Anyway, the next book is which is the sixth book, is Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi, and this is about two estranged sisters who end up switching places and committing insurance fraud to save one of their lives. So I think it's basically, as it says, about two sisters who are estranged, and then they're living very different sort of lives. I just really like the way that like both of their lives were described as well, and then how they have to come together to kind of like save one of their lives and commit insurance fraud. I just think that it sounds really interesting, and I just really like hearing stories of like a sibling dynamic. I think that's something that I really look forward to reading. And then another, not a sibling dynamic, but like a grandmother and a granddaughter dynamic, which is again another estranged family, is Fragile Monsters by Catherine Menon. And this is a debut novel set in Malaysia during the World War II. I read a book by When We Disappeared, which was a book set in World War II in Singapore, and I wanted to know of more stories from different nations other than, you know, the regular, which is like Britain and the Germany during World War II. I think that it is fascinating to know of another region as well. So yeah, so anyway, so this book is about an estranged grandmother and a granddaughter, and the granddaughter wants to understand what happened to her mother and why she died, and then there's some childhood tragedy that happened, and I think it's basically going to be a book that like peels back a lot of layers as you read it. And I just like to read books like that. So I'm hoping that this is great, and it is a debut, so well, fingers crossed. The next book, which is book number 8, is A Crooked Tree by Una Manonian. And this really reminded me of that movie 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Like, that was essentially the vibe that it gave me. If you've seen the movie, then you'd understand. If you haven't seen the movie, please see the movie, because holy shit, the performances, so good. Anyway, so this one essentially, like, the what it's told, what it is about a mother who gets into like a fit of rage and drops off her 12-year-old. Like, she basically is in a car with her children, and her 12-year-old is really pissing her off, so she drops her off the side of the road, and then tells her to walk back home, and then that the book does, I mean, like, the summary doesn't tell you what happens after that, but it just says that something happens after that, which may not have been the best. So I want to know what happens. I want to know that everything's okay. But essentially, it's like dealing with the repercussions of that rash decision that they took. And yeah, it just hooked me immediately, and I need to read this. The 9th book is actually a middle grade book, but I thought I would include it in this because I think like adults would want to read this more than the middle grades. And I'm gonna actually read out the summary because I feel like it does a much better job. But the book itself is called How Do You Live by Genzaburo Yoshino, and it is a translated Japanese book, which is much loved in Japan, but is finally getting translated to English. And this is what it says that it's about. It says, How Do You Live is narrated in 2 voices. The first belongs to Copper, 15, who after the death of his father must confront inevitable and enormous change, including his own betrayal of his best friend. In between episodes of Copper's emerging story, his uncle writes to him in a journal, sharing knowledge and offering advice on life's big question as Copper begins to encounter them. Over the course of the story, Copper, like his namesake Copernicus, looks to the stars and uses his discovery about the heavens, earth, and human nature to answer the questions of how he will live. This just sounds so good. Like, while reading the summary, I was tearing up. I was like, this book is gonna make me cry. I just know it. Just everything that it said in terms of like the child trying to figure out what is going to be his life here on, about like a battle or like a fight that he had with his best friend, about losing his father. It's just it's gonna hit me in the feels, and I am ready. So I can't wait to read this one. The next we have historical fiction. I just realized that Fragile Monster should have been in historical fiction, but that's fine. That's fine. I have just 3 books in historical fiction, but these are the books that I think are just going to be amazing, and I really look forward to reading them. But if you do have any more recommendations, do let me know. So the first one is The Paris Library by Janet Janet S. Charles. Great. So this is based on a true story in World War II in Paris, of course. Where else? And this is when the Nazis marched into Paris, and just this one person who is a librarian, and how she kind of uses her librarian role to kind of revolt, I guess. And then so that's one timeline, and then the other timeline is in Montana in the US in 1983, where Lily is a lonely teenager looking for adventure, and she is interested in her elderly neighbor. So I'm assuming it is the Odile, who is the librarian. Anyway, we will find out. I am very interested in terms of what it says. It says, based on the true World War II story of the heroic librarians at the American Library in Paris, this is an unforgettable story of romance, friendship, family, and the power of literature to bring us together. So amazing. The second one is In the Country of Others by Leila Slimani. And Leila Slimani is a Moroccan writer who I am very intrigued by. I've not read any of her books though, but I do want to. And I'm again going to read from this part, from the summary, because I think that it does it really well, and I will not be able to tell you what the book is about otherwise. But it follows Mathilde, a spirited young French woman who falls in love with Amine, a handsome Moroccan soldier. I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing all of these words, names. Forgive me. In the French army during the World War II. After the war, the couple settles in Morocco to start a farm. When Amine tries to cultivate the rocky and unforgiving terrain, Mathilde feels suffocated by the harsh climate. Alone and isolated with her two children, she struggles with the assimilation and classism. The 10 years of the novel are those of a rise in tensions and violence that will lead in 1956 to Morocco's independence. All the characters in this novel live in the country of others, settlers versus natives, soldiers versus peasants, and exiles. Women especially live in the country of men and must constantly fight for their emancipation. So that just sounds so good. And I have heard like absolutely amazing things about Leila Slimani, so I absolutely can't wait to read this one. And then the third book, or the 12th book in general, is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr., and this is a debut novel, and I will again read from what it says. And it says, a singular and stunning debut novel from the forbidden union between two enslaved young men on a deep south plantation, the refuge they find in each other, and the betrayal that threatens their existence. And I saw quite a few really cool people saying great things about this book, so I am actually really excited to pick this up, because I look forward to seeing what they had to say was right or wrong, if that makes sense. But also, yeah, sounds cool, and debut novel, so fingers crossed again. Next, we have nonfiction. For nonfiction, I have 5 books, because I have much more in my Indian nonfiction list. So that's just like a personal thing, but I think that I just brought it down to the 5 that I absolutely want to read. The first one, again, I have no idea what the book is about, because it just says untitled, and that is Roxane Gay's new book. I absolutely love everything that Roxane Gay writes. I think she's amazing. So I will read anything that she puts out there. So Roxane Gay's new book coming out in 2021. Then it was recently announced that Akwaeke Emezi is also writing their memoir. So that is also coming out in 2021. So I'm very excited for that one. Then books that we actually know something about. There is a book called Love is an Ex-Country by Randa Jarar, and it's queer, it's Muslim, it's about an Arab American and about an openly fat and happy person, and I just think that that sounds amazing. It's a memoir of her life, having to live in all of these sort of roles as a woman, and I just think that it sounds really interesting and really cool, and I've heard great things, so I'm excited to read this one. The next one, which is the 4th in nonfiction but 16th overall, is When Women Invented Television by Jennifer Keeshan Armstrong, and this basically follows 4 women who essentially revolutionized like the television industry. This was essentially when television had just come out as a medium, but everyone had stuck to radio as a medium, and they didn't think that television was going to be a thing. So, but there were 4 women who, on their own, in different paths, kind of said, "Okay, we're gonna try it," and they kind of like revolutionized it. But then and then the men kind of came in when they realized that it was going to be the next big thing, and then how they had to then fight to stay relevant with sexist men, and how they had to fight for their right. And I just think that that is really interesting. Television is something that is just so integral to our lives right now, and I really want to read about these women who brought about this change. One of them, there's only one who I actually know, I'm assuming, because like um, they're all American, so it's a very American perspective. But there's one who's Betty White. Betty White is someone who is a household name. The rest I wouldn't quite know as much, but maybe Americans would have a better idea. But yeah, that is that book. And then the last book is How to Avoid Climate Change by Bill Gates. I like Bill Gates as in general. I may not agree with everything that he does, but I think he's a cool person and has the right ideas. I do also want to know more about climate change. He is a well-connected person who should hopefully have spoken to a lot of scientists and hence been able to write this. So I think that this would be a good book overall to kind of understand how to avoid climate change. And I think that in this book he also kind of writes down what steps we can take as countries, as people, etc. Or hopefully, I mean, I'm just assuming, but I think that's what it is. But yeah, I look forward to reading that as well. And that is the end of video number one. Just video number one. But do let me know if there are any books from this that you definitely want to read. If there are any recommendations that you have that I have missed out on, then do comment down below. I think that I want to know. I just generally want to know. And then also look forward to a bunch of the other videos that I'm making, which are going to be on, as I've said, sci-fi, no, let me tell you, young adult, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, thriller, mysteries. That's coming out tomorrow. And then after that will be my third video on Indian books in terms of fiction and translated. And the day after that, which is going to be on Indian non-fiction. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a good one, and I will see you hopefully in my next video. Bye.